New information has been surfacing concerning the crash of Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243 in the hours and days after the accident, from intelligence suggesting possible military action against the plane to denial of an emergency landing and more. But first, a recap. Azerbaijan Airlines Flight 8243 was a scheduled flight from the airline's home base in Baku, Azerbaijan, to Grozny, southern Russia. On the day of the flight, the 25th of December, 2024, the service was operated by an 11-year-old Embraer E190. There were 67 souls on board, split across 62 passengers and 5 crew members. Flight 8243 took off from Baku's runway 34 at 8:05 a.m. local time and was soon seen at 30,000 feet heading towards Grozny. Radar jamming was observed in the Grozny area, so the flight disappeared from publicly available radar services. It reappeared at 10:08 a.m. Baku time, 2 hours after it was due in Grozny, squawking 7700 midway over the Caspian Sea and heading for Atkau, Kazakhstan. In this time, it is reported that the flight crew had radioed the ground with a general emergency concerning a flight control system's failure. The plane was observed to be oscillating left and right and pitching up and down as it approached Atkau. The pilots managed to crudely line their aircraft up with runway 11 at Aktau Airport before boarding their approach at 2 miles from the runway, attempting to re-establish themselves with a left-hand 360-degree turn, missing the runway and attempting the same maneuver to the right. During this right-hand turn, the flight impacted the ground and cartwheeled. The rear fuselage detached and was thrown clear, landing largely intact and on its roof. Of the 67 on board, the BBC reports 38 people were killed in the crash. This leaves 29 survivors. Of those 29, injuries vary, however, some from the rear fuselage section were observed to be walking immediately after the crash. Investigators and the press have been particularly drawn to photos taken of the tail of the aircraft. These photos seem to show the tail having been impacted by small objects of some kind, with inwards, bent puncture marks suggesting external impacts from the left-hand side of the aircraft. Video footage from inside the aircraft also shows the oxygen masks having been deployed, suggesting that the cabin was also breached and the aircraft was no longer able to pressurize. So what impacted the aircraft? Reports are suggesting that the aircraft could have been accidentally targeted by a Russian surface-to-air missile system, specifically an Sa-22 Pantsir S air defense system. Instead of using a kinetic impact, the missiles used by this system use what is known as a proximity fuse, or proxy fuse for short. Instead of making contact with its target, a proxy fuse detonates within the blast radius of its warhead, which is surrounded by shrapnel pieces, which are blasted in all directions. So why would a surface-to-air missile system be installed near Grozny Airport? The city has consistently been a target for Ukrainian long-range drones, with the city being of strategic importance to Russia's war in Ukraine. Prior to Ukraine's Christmas Day attack, 3 other strikes were confirmed on the 4th, 12th, and 15th of December, as reported by RBC Ukraine. On the 25th of December, the Ukrainian armed forces confirmed the attack on Grozny, using slow-guided drones to attack a military facility belonging to the Russian National Guard. This was also corroborated by the Grozny-based Telegram user Protests in the World. The user uploaded a video of a Ukrainian drone flying low over their location at 8:50 a.m. local time on the 25th of December. The damage that a proxy fuse missile can do to an aircraft varies depending on its size and strength, from peppering it with holes with the aim of disabling or otherwise compromising it to outright shredding it. Judging from the damage observed at the crash site and the fact that the plane made it all the way to Kazakhstan, the missile was either not at the strength or proximity to the plane to cause compromising damage to the plane's exterior. The observed damage suggests that the missile detonated above the aircraft, towards the tail, or behind the aircraft, and on the left-hand side, judging from the concentration of damage and the direction of puncture holes in the plane's skin. However, concerning the plane's interior, damage was likely far more extensive. Damage was observed on the aircraft's tail, home to various critical hydraulic pipes and electrical wiring. The aircraft's continuous oscillating and pitching suggests the pilots had significant difficulty controlling the plane, having presumably lost hydraulic pressure. We do know that the pilots had requested an emergency landing due to a flight control system failure. The fact it made it across the Caspian Sea in this condition is quite frankly remarkable. Having established the what, in the why, we must now establish the how. How could a passenger plane on a scheduled flight be so easily targeted by a surface-to-air missile? Due to radar jamming in the area at the time, Flight 8243's movements cannot be ascertained. However, what we do know about drone strikes of this nature is that the drones do not all arrive at the same time, and radar systems are not turned off immediately after the strike is perceived to be over. And precedent has shown in recent history that missile operators on heightened readiness can make mistakes far more easily, especially when unidentified objects appear on their radar screens from unexpected directions, or they simply do not have enough time and information to create a clear picture for themselves. In a kill or be killed situation such as this, reflexes and emotions can be heightened and relied upon more than usual. This is known as scenario fulfillment, in which a person in a high-pressure situation who has trained for scenarios to the point that responses become automatic is faced with a situation that differs from their training scenarios. This was first studied in depth following the 1988 shoot-down of Iran Air Flight 655 by the American guided missile destroyer, the USS Vincennes. Flight 655 departed its origin city of Bandar Abbas behind schedule. So the crew of the Vincennes, who had the Bandar Abbas flight schedule available to them, did not recognize the flight, which was due to directly overfly the ship. The Vincennes was already under attack from a different direction by Iranian gunboats, and an unknown aircraft overflying them appeared to the crew as a coordinated attack against the ship. Consequently, the ship's tactical information coordinator mistook the plane as descending towards the Vincennes when in fact it was still climbing. This mistake, combined with the fact that Flight 655 was still flying toward the ship, albeit at altitude, cemented the crew's belief that they were under attack. When the plane breached 9 miles from the ship, it was fired upon and destroyed at the cost of all 290 souls on board. Judging from this information, we can ascertain that Flight 8243's situation somewhat mirrors that of Iran. Air 655, from the perspective of a missile operator, the city was already under attack from the air, and with little information and little time to evaluate, a black and white decision to be made during a very gray situation. Either let an unidentified target on his radar screen through and risk it causing more casualties in a city he is tasked with defending, or fire on it and eliminate the perceived risk. Blinded by the fog of war, the decision is simple. With the intelligence at the operator's disposal, defend the city. Take no chances. We do not know the exact time at which the plane was fired upon. What we do know, though, is that after taking fire, Flight 8263 was denied emergency landing clearance in Russia. It is unknown whether the pilots were directed to Aktau by air traffic control or if the pilots selected Aktau themselves. However, this is where the plane was directed. Aktau provided a good diversionary airport because of its long runway. The journey across the Caspian Sea mitigating the risk of ground casualties, it eliminated the need to fly back over the Caucasus, and that it was 25 nautical miles closer to Grozny than Baku. Recognizing the possibility of a water landing, some passengers were observed with their life jackets on. The pilots flew the plane significantly below 10,000 feet, allowing the passengers to breathe the unpressurized air. Despite the best efforts of the pilots, however, the plane would not make it to Aktau's runway, impacting the ground at 10:28 a.m. Baku time, roughly 3 miles 5 kilometers northwest of the airport. While the Kremlin has remained silent on the matter thus far, NBC News and other outlets report that 5 other airports in Russia, including Moscow's 4 airports, were temporarily closed, citing unspecified safety concerns. They have since reopened. Immediately following the crash, the Azerbaijani president Ilham Aliyev declared the 25th of December a day of mourning in the country and established a commission to investigate the crash. Azerbaijan Airlines also established a phone number for affected families to contact and published the names of the passengers and crew. In the days since, Baku's airport has been flooded by people laying flowers in paying respects to the 38 that perished. As more information comes to light, we at Airways Magazine will be sure to keep you updated on YouTube, as well as on our website and our social media outlets.